We are Anna Schultz,
Katelyn Kiefer,
Esra Lilly,
and Cara, and we are going to be talking about Gothic architecture. The Gothic period lasted from around the mid-12th century to the 16th century. Gothic architecture refers to an imposing style of medieval European architecture that developed out of Romanesque styles and eventually gave way to the Renaissance styles. It is most famously characterized by long pointed arches, exterior buttresses, and ribbed vaults. It first began in France, but then eventually spread beyond French boundaries. The theological and aesthetic foundation of Gothic architecture were formulated and presented by Abbot Suger. He gives a synthesis of the elements of the Gothic style in his manuscript. He believed that a brighter church would brighten the minds of the congregation and lead them to the true light, which is Christ. Some of the main elements of Gothic architecture included buttresses and flying buttresses, triforiums, stained windows and rose windows, aisles, pinnacles, naves, transepts, and ribbed vaulting. It was also known for its robust structures, which showed the defensive quality of the architectural character. One of the most important and defining elements of the Gothic period was the pointed arch, or oval arch. Its influence spread in Spain, Italy, and then throughout the rest of Europe. The pointed arch also became the structural principle of the ribbed vault, which was a very popular structural element in cathedral architecture. Later, around the 14th century, the Gothic period progressed and became the High Gothic, or Renaissance Gothic period. This period had a high emphasis on stained glass. They often represented religious stories. These colorful designs also created a dynamic interior environment as the sun moved across the glass. At this time, Suger's goal of brightening religious spaces was achieved. The Gothic architecture created unique, illuminated interior spaces. This created a radical change in architecture, implementing new architectural concepts to allow more light into a building. This caused a shift in architecture and the development of spatial awareness for future architecture. Another aspect of High Gothic architecture was the addition of gargoyles. These were stone sculptures of monsters that were a mixture of animals and humans. They represented mythological power against evil, but also functioned as drains for the roofs. The Gothic period is often seen as more dark period, but in reality, the architecture of this period focused largely on adding more natural light and beautiful, elaborate stained glass to buildings. Many of its finest works can still be seen today.
I will be talking about the top 5 most famous Gothic style buildings. And the first building that I'll be talking about is the Chartres Cathedral. This is one of the most famous and impressive pieces of the Gothic architecture from the 12th and 13th century. It was built by the Roman Catholic Church in Chartres in North Paris, central France. It was constructed between 1194 and 1120 after death, and there were numerous remodels and upgrades that were done to both the interior and exterior of the cathedral. The Chartres Cathedral is considered to be one of the most pinnacle of the Gothic architectural achievement. The next building I will be talking about is the Cologne Cathedral. It is in Cologne, North Rhine-Westphalia, Germany. It was built under the rule of the Holy Roman Emperor and was meant for worship of the empire. The cathedral was constructed between 1248 after death and was abandoned in 1560 after death, and it was finally completed in 1880. And the next building I will be talking about is the Notre Dame in Paris. It is one of the largest tourist spots that people like to visit from everywhere, and it is located in the heart of Paris. And it was constructed on the cathedral, the construction on the cathedral began in 1163 after death and was finally completed almost 2 centuries later in 1345. A fire recently destroyed a decent amount of the cathedral's ceilings that was made up of elaborate woodworking and pillars. The efforts are on their way to restore this section. The next building I'll be talking about is the Milan Cathedral. This was built during the height of the Roman Catholic Church's influence during the medieval period. It is located in Milan, Italy, in a city that used to be in its own state. It's the largest church in Italy and is heavily more decorated than any other church. The construction began in 1386 and took nearly 9 centuries to complete. This cathedral is one of the greatest works done according to the Gothic architecture. The next and my favorite building that I'm talking about is the Westminster Abbey. This building is the site of many of the English country's official ceremonies, such as weddings, funerals, and even the coronation of kings and queens. The church was founded in 1062, but construction didn't begin until 1245, under orders from King Harry III. The church wasn't a part of the Roman Catholic denomination and exists the church in England. The structure lasted multiple decades to build, but was completed in 1269. This was one of the most prominent Gothic churches in the world.
Gothic interior design has many key features that express the concepts of design and the features in the space. One major aspect of the Gothic period were the dramatic pointed arches. Different from the classical rounded arches doorways, pointed arches are a major form in the Gothic interiors. These arches are dramatic and elegant and show how many advancements in architecture as well as engineering that they did in this time period. Pointed arches were a key innovation that was taken from the Islamic architecture that allowed taller and lighter buildings compared to the Romanesque rounded arches. Stained glass windows as well as rose windows were a key factor in their interiors as well. These glass inserts have practical as well as spiritual purposes. The glass allows light to come into the massive structures while also conveying religious or historical narratives. These windows also give the space a larger sense of meaning. Tracery also had a large impact on the period. These were rocks or stones details that were bordered around the windows. The dark color palette is also a large part of the Gothic interior design and is still in the modern depiction. The deep, rich colors are dominant to the scheme. Black, dark red, deep purple, and emerald green are very commonly used to create the mood of the Gothic style. These spaces hold an emphasis on creating a space that reflects depth and complexity. Dark color palettes have a large take in this, creating depth with different tones and deep, rich colors. The different hues bring warmth and sensory richness into the space that affects how people inside the space both visually and emotionally react. Fabrics were important to emphasize the interior space as well. These were normally luxury fabrics such as silk or velvet, and they were used to add heavy drapery to the furniture and added depth and texture to the spaces. Furniture pieces from this time were either straightforward or very elaborate. Gothic chairs were rare. Most sat on benches, chests, or stools. The simplicity of the furniture was to a testament of their function. Gothic chairs, when used, would have been grand in size and material. They also had religious importance, normally for an individual of importance that were exaggerated in scale. There was also an emphasis on height and included elaborate Gothic decoration. Gothic furniture has an outstanding connection to Gothic architecture, and many pieces of furniture such as buffets and display cabinets were designed to be seen as miniature Gothic buildings. This connects to the flow between interiors and exteriors. Gothic interior design connects itself to the exterior style of architecture, which makes it a cohesive style. The connection between the interior and the exterior is extremely important in this style and tells the story of the space.
Romanesque architecture was mostly from the 9th to the 12th century, or from the 800s to the 1100s, which was the transitional period between the early Christian architecture and the Gothic architecture. Gothic architecture was dominant from the 12th to the 16th century, and the height of the Gothic architecture was from the 13th to the 15th century. In Romanesque floor plans, you'll see a long basilica-like shaped floor plan which is more of a simple rectangular floor plan. And there will be a central nave with smaller aisles, and the Romanesque floor plans focus on simplicity of the form. For the Gothic floor plans, they were mostly churches, which were more complex. They also had a cross shape, which included nave and transepts, which were the arms of the cross. The layout was designed to elevate the spiritual experience through height and light. On the left, you'll see common structural elements of the Romanesque Empire. The top picture is a barrel vault, which is similar to a tunnel. Both the barrel vault and the groin vault are made of stone, which is a thick and solid material. On the bottom, you'll see the groin vault, which is the combination of two barrel vaults, which was used as a structural element. On the right, you'll see a flying buttress, which was used for structural support, which allowed for more space to be open on the interior. You'll also see large windows and pointed arches, which allowed for tall vaulted ceilings. In the Romanesque architecture, you'll see thick walls with round arches, barrel vaults, and buttresses, which were less common. In the Gothic architecture, you'll see thin walls, pointed arches, which help distribute the weight more evenly, which allowed for the taller and more open construction. You'll also find ribbed vaults, flying buttresses, and large windows. On the left, you'll see the Church of Saint Sernin, which the Romanesque Empire felt more massive and heavy and grounded due to the stone. It also had a fortress-like appearance, and they focused on durability and protection of the faithful. In the Church of Saint Sernin, it was a great example of Romanesque architecture. It was made of bricks, and you can also see the barrel arches on the front. On the right, you'll see the cathedral in France. This was Gothic architecture because it was elegant and soaring. There was a lot of emphasis on the verticality and the light. The style also conveys a sense of spiritual aspiration. The structure stretched towards the heavens, and the tall towers reached to the heavens, which is still seen on churches today.
Here are the sources we used for our project.